Welcome back to Donnie's Taco. It has been a little bit since I've seen you guys last, but the Taco now has 6,896 miles on it. Given the recent events over in the Middle East, I figured this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about my fuel efficiency tips and how I have gotten good gas mileage for the most part. We've been idling all day today, so not quite today, but every other day we've been well over 20 and 25 miles to the gallon. Now, there's a group on Facebook for 4th gen Tacoma owners, and none of them believe that I'm getting over 20 and 25 miles to the gallon consistently. And that is including with all the trailers that I tow, all the time that I spend sitting here in the Wendy's parking lot waiting for DoorDash orders, all of it. I get over 20 miles to the gallon combined. So here's what I think is contributing to my good gas mileage. So the Toyota Tacoma iForce Max Hybrid is a different kind of hybrid than your typical hybrid. I feel like every other hybrid I've driven before, which has mostly been Chevy Volts and some Priuses, usually it accelerates with the electric motor and then it coasts on the engine. But this does the opposite. It accelerates with the engine and then it coasts with the electric motor. One other thing that's a little different from the iForce Max Hybrid versus other hybrids is the electric drive unit goes through the transmission. So the electric motor is driving the car through all the gears in the transmission, it's driving it through the torque converter, everything. So I thought that was kind of an interesting choice on Toyota's part, but that's how they did it. And I feel like that affects the gas mileage a lot. So with those things in consideration, I would say that trying to drive it like a regular hybrid ironically makes it less fuel efficient. If you try to drive it slow and easy, it seems like it tries to run the engine as much as it possibly can, and I think it's just to keep the battery charged up. However, when you're accelerating, if you step on the gas just enough for the engine to engage and then accelerate slowly up to speed from there, it seems like it works way better than trying to accelerate on the battery only. In the Toyota Tacoma group, I have noticed there's a lot of people that recommend getting up to the speed that you intend to go to, maybe even going a little bit past the speed that you intend to go to, and then letting off the gas and slowing down a little bit, forcing it to go into hybrid mode. And I have tried this method quite a few times in quite a few different ways, and in my experience, this actually kills your fuel efficiency. And the reason it kills your fuel efficiency, at least in my experience, is again, it makes the engine run a whole lot. I think it's just trying to maintain the battery charge. So ironically, the engine is running all the time and killing your fuel efficiency. Premium and ethanol-free gas makes a massive difference. For me, it was the difference between like 15 miles to the gallon and 22 or 23 or even 25 plus miles per gallon. It makes a big difference going to premium and ethanol-free gas. Now, the thing is with the gas, I don't know for sure if it is the premium that causes this or if it's the ethanol-free. It seems like both contributes to it because I've definitely filled up with E10 premium and it made a big difference over E10 regular. So that definitely is a consideration, but I'm not sure how much the ethanol part is. I need to do some more testing to get exact numbers here, but the gas that you put into your truck makes a big difference. And it makes sense. I mean, you're running a turbocharged and a high compression engine. Typically, you'd want premium gas for that. Toyota says that they recommend regular gas, and sure, regular gas will run just fine in this engine. It's not going to harm it or damage it, but it's also not going to be running as efficiently as it possibly can because it has to do some weird timing and mixture tricks to get it to work correctly under those conditions. Like I said, I need to do more testing between just regular unleaded and E10 premium and ethanol-free premium just to get exact numbers and figure out exactly how much these things affect the gas mileage. They clearly do affect the gas mileage a lot, but I've not had a consistent enough environment around me to do a test like that. So that'll come in the future. Speed is also a big factor in fuel efficiency, and this one's an interesting one. So remember how I said before that the electric motor is before the transmission, so the power from the electric motor travels all the way through the transmission and all the gears of the transmission. This means that the Tacoma is not necessarily the most reliable at one specific speed. There are like 5 or 6 different speeds where it's most reliable. So for example, in my case, it is way more efficient to drive at 35 miles an hour than it is to drive at 30 miles an hour. And it's even more efficient to drive at 45 miles an hour than it is to drive at 35 or even 30 miles an hour. It's kind of hard to pin down exactly what speed this thing likes the most, but I've noticed that if you drive faster than 30 miles an hour and slower than 60 miles an hour, that kind of seems to be the range where you get the best fuel efficiency. But there are going to be specific numbers in that range that are way more efficient than others, like 28 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, 42 miles an hour. Those are all markers where I feel like this thing runs the most efficient. And that's because of the transmission. You know, obviously, depending on the gear it's in, it's going to be most efficient at a different speed. So I think that's why there's not one consistent speed in this thing where it's most efficient. Whereas other hybrids, usually there's one specific speed where they're most efficient. Funny enough, it seems to also get really, really good gas mileage if you drive a slight uphill and then you drive back down that slight downhill. Now, I don't really know why this is. It doesn't make sense to me from a physics standpoint, but when you're going uphill, it doesn't really hit the fuel efficiency that much. When you're going downhill, it coasts pretty much all the way down in electric mode, and oftentimes it'll even charge the battery all the way up. So once you get to the bottom, you can drive on electricity for quite a ways. Again, this doesn't make sense to me. The laws of thermodynamics would suggest that that is not going to happen, but I have observed that going slightly uphill and then slightly back downhill the same direction seems to yield amazing results. Another thing that I've noticed, and you may not necessarily be able to control this, however, if your driving style is this way, then it might be worth getting the hybrid over a non-hybrid. But I've noticed that if you run the truck all day, even if you're idling all day long and it's just sitting there, it is way more efficient than turning it on and off. Take, for example, I'm a transporter and I'm also a taxi driver and DoorDash and Uber on the side a little bit. So literally, I'll turn my truck on and it'll be turned on for 10 or 12 or sometimes as much as 16 hours a day, just straight. And it seems like those days that I leave it on all day and I'm just driving around all day, it gets really, really good gas mileage, like in the 30s and sometimes into the 40s every once in a while. But I mean, 40s, you have to be really, really, really particular about your driving. Like I said, it's not really something that most people can control, but if you're a taxi driver or a DoorDash driver or someone who's going to be driving all day, it is way more efficient to just leave the truck turned on than it is to turn it on and off. It is now the next day, and one last thing I forgot to mention as I was editing this video is when you first start your car in the morning, let it fully warm up. Let it run its cycle, and let it run until the engine turns completely off. Now, if it's really cold outside, this could take a while, and maybe that's not going to be practical, but on a normal temperature day where it's above like 40 degrees, 30, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, turn the engine on, let it warm all the way up until the engine turns off. And I don't know why, but doing this seems to really increase the fuel efficiency. I think it's because it starts off with a full hybrid battery and, you know, the engine's fully warmed up. Well, the longer our video goes on, the worse our fuel efficiency gets, so this might be a good time to say goodbye. Hopefully these fuel efficiency tips will help you get through this gas crisis that we're having right now.